we are honored to showcase a passionate educator and an education officer. In his passion for providing equality and equitable education, he has reached thousands of kids in low-income community to bridge the gap of education inequity. He is a social change enthusiast and the founder of Kiritu School Nigeria, where he works with diverse professionals all over the world to remedy Nigeria's out-of-school illiteracy index, and is particularly fascinated with the terms of education for sustainable development, system thinking, and human-centered designs for a sustainable world. He is Mr. Issac Bamidele Itunu, representing Nigeria. His session title is Inclusive Quality Education in Low-Outcome Communities. Hello, Issac. How are you?
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can hear you. The stage is yours.
Greetings from Lagos, Nigeria. It's morning here, 7:30 to be precise. It's been an honor to be here today. So I'd say good morning, good afternoon, from wherever you're listening to me. My name is Bamidele Issac Itunu. Like I said, I'm an education officer. Thank you so very much, Anusha, for that wonderful introduction. Thank you, everyone, for the amazing and incredible work you've been doing all around the world to make sure that education is inclusive and, in fact, accessible to everyone. You guys are the most valuable persons. Yes, please, can I share my screen now if I'm permitted to do that?
Yes, you may. Just one moment. Yes, you may. Thank you. Thank you, Issac.
All right, thank you very much. Please, can you see my screen? I need to be sure that you can see my screen. Can everybody see my screen, please?
Yes, we see your screen.
All right, thank you very much. So I'm going to be, very, very shortly presenting my topic on inclusive quality education, the context of low-income communities of Nigeria. When we talk about low-income communities, I mean, I have visited a lot of places. I have also had the opportunity to be in Europe, a couple of cities, and low-income communities as well. And I know what it looks like to have a low-income community and the level of socioeconomic development that is obtainable in these regions, and the quality of life and what is obtainable. So we understand that low-income communities are everywhere. However, we are using Nigeria as a case study. So please, I want us to be objective, be open-minded, and as much as possible, my session is going to be very engaging. You're also going to have the opportunity to share as I'm sharing, because I arrange my slides in such a way that you also get to communicate with me. So it's kind of very engaging. So please be ready to unmute if that's allowed. Anisha, I don't know if that's allowed. All right, thank you very much. So I'm going to so let's go through an icebreaker real quick. So everybody just, relax a little bit. So it's going to be an interactive session, a very epiphanic one at that. So the first icebreaker I brought today is what goes up but never come down. You can use the chat box, and you can also say it out if you don't mind. What goes up but never come down? There might be a reward for whoever gets 5 over 5. Maybe I'll do a round of applause or something. Yes, you can use the chat box to. Thank you, Alexander. I think he said it first. It's age. Thank you, Muazzam Zain. Appreciate the input. So age goes up and never comes down. Okay, so the second one. Nigeria is on which continent? I mean, it's funny because I've gotten a lot of responses from my friends all around the world. Many people do not even know what continent Nigeria is on. Thank you. I think the first person was Shuta Aria. She said Nigeria. Thank you, everyone. This is interesting. And then the next one is, what month of the year has 28 days? What month of the year has 28 days? Oh, okay. Uh, okay. Is there another answer? Thank you, Bina, because all the days of the month are actually has 28 days. So February just has 28 without extension, or 29 on every leap year. So actually, all the days of the month has 28 days. Thank you very much for sharing. And then what is always in front of you but can never be seen? It's always in front of you but can never be seen. What is always in front of you but can never be seen? Anyone? 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 The face, is that it? The hair? Please keep it coming, guys. Myself. Okay. I don't know how that kind of relates, but idea. Okay, let me just say it's the future. The future is always in front of you, but you can never see it. It's always ahead, right? So yeah, thank you for participating. And the last one, uh, what word starts with E and ends with Y? So the int is Global Education Influence Theme for 2020 Global Online Conference. If you know it, you just go to the inbox and I'll put it there. Yeah. Who knows empathy? Thank you, Sylvia. Thank you, Dedebel. Thank you, everyone. The word is actually empathy. And that is what is going to, usher me into my session today. Empathy as a theme for providing access for a quality and inclusive education for everyone, irrespective of the race, the gender, the socioeconomic background, the geographic locations, and what have you. So empathy is very, very important when we are looking at, we are talking about providing quality education for everyone. Yeah. So what characterizes low-income community in your country? I mean, this is, like I said, it's going to be an engaging, interactive session. I don't get to say everything. I beg your pardon. I need to go back. Yes. So were you born or ever lived in a marginalized community? I mean, for some of us, I just want us to have a sort of connection with what what I'm saying. So you won't be like I'm just bringing everything up. At some point, you must have seen a low-income community or a marginalized community, so you know what it is to be in this kind of community. For me, I grew up in one. It's one of the things that actually shaped my interest around making sure that quality education is inclusive and is accessible for folks around these places, because at the end of the day, they are still citizens of the world and they deserve the very best. So if you've ever lived or you experienced living in a marginalized community, you understand why this is very important, and this topic is very crucial as even the world approaches 21st century and advancement in technology, advancement in exposure and what have you. So you can tell us where you're from in the chat box with an example of a popular low-income community in your area. So you can just go to the chat and let's do this. You can just use the chat and let's do this. So tell us where you're from, an example of a low-income community there, so we can have a kind of a mutual understanding and connection on these low-income communities that we're talking about. So you have a deep reflection about, I'm from India, and from Arunachal. Oh, I have a friend from Arunachal, Pradesh, if I'm correct. Yeah, and I have a lot of people all around the place, and I can relate with when they say, okay, we're going to, for this sort of advocacy, we're going to provide quality education. We've had network with Teach for India, Teach for Madagascar, all over the area, and we can, you can just see and glean through what life is for these people over there. How do they get to, get included into the grand plans of education around the world? So I'm not seeing anyone in the chat box right now. Tell us where you're from. Tell us an example of a low quality community in your area. Anyone, if you can, it's be really helpful, really helpful, so we know we're on the same page. But if you're not getting anyone, I mean, you can just because I'm going to be giving us context, and we're going to be using this context going forward. So you relate with the life they live in comparison to life in developed areas. There is a distinct dichotomy between their life there and lives in developed areas. So it's always a huge difference looking at someone living in the city, someone living in a poor or low income community. And so do you think people in marginalized environments have equal access to quality education or even quality life? I mean, these are things that, should sprout out question. Thank you, Abigail. Thank you, very good. Alakpere, I've heard about the place, but I've not really. Thank you for even giving us some sort of, understanding and insight into what Alakpere community look like. You can just open the chat and read what's Abigail from. So so we're moving on to facts about the world low-income communities. So like I said, it's not just I'm just using Nigeria as a point of contact, as a case study, so that's because it's where I'm from, and I can really relate with things around there. Thank you, Alexander, for giving us Adenta, a suburb in Accra. Thank you very much for relating with these stories as it's unfolding. So like I said, it's not just in Africa, because many people think when we talk about low-income communities or poverty zones of the world, we're talking about Africa, we're talking about the Middle East, we're talking about Asia, or stuff like that. No, it's a fact that low-income communities exist everywhere. However, the rate of development just differs. So it was recorded, or it is recorded, that 1.3 billion people living in 107 developing countries. And this accounts for 22% of the world's population actually live, in developing countries and let's say low-income communities of the world. 1.3 billion people. That's huge. Then it was further established that the above population of people, that is 1.3 billion people, live in multidimensional poverty. This is really touching, considering the number of people we have on the planet and the number of people that are actually living in low-income communities and living below the poverty line. So above 84.3% of this multidimensionally poor populace live in South Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa. We know that, yes, we have these numbers, and we're doing all we can to make sure that we provide quality education, because we believe education is, the tool to actually change the world. It's a truth, and we see this truth unfolding and unraveling itself year in, year out. Yes, so we want to go through a very interesting story. Please, I want you to rest. So note to this story as
I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, I think there is a network issue. He might be joining us soon. Please stay tuned. Thank you very much. Oh, he's here. Hi, Isaac.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think I had a sort of break in transmission there.
That's okay.
So sorry about that.
That's okay.
So I'm going to be sharing my screen now again. Sure. Please, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
All right, thank you. So so I want you to connect with these stories, and so that we know that it's our collective responsibility to make sure that education is accessible by everyone, irrespective of where they live. So basically, that's what the story is telling us about. So yes, you might just want to go on Google and look up this slum in Lagos, Nigeria. I mean, Lagos, Nigeria is one of the most booming economy in the world. And as much as we have these interesting places on the highland and places that are very, very developed, I mean, Lagos State is, we can even call Lagos State the economy of Africa. if I'm not mistaken. I think a lot of people here agree with me. But if you look at this particular place, we see how some places, we call them urban slums. And then they are still also described as low-income communities of a country, of a location, of a place. It doesn't, when we talk about low-income communities, it doesn't always mean people that live in villages or people that live in, in hamlets or so. We still have people in the city that still live in really bad situations, and they still crave for development, they still crave for quality education, quality life, social, economic upgrades to how they live their life. So this is Ajegunle slum. I'm going to be sharing some stories real quick about them because I know my time is fast, going. So Ajegunle slum is, characterized by its notoriety. A lot of things happen here, and as you can see, we also have kids learning. This is not a conventional classroom, as you can see here. This is like and what should I call it? I should call it probably an escape route for these kids to just learn something. I mean, this is not a conventional school, and so this happens a lot in low-income communities. I mean, you'd imagine, if I should ask you, without thinking about it, would you want to come to places like this to teach as a teacher? I think the first thing that would come to your mind is no, because nobody wants to live in places that is this, poorly developed. But then there are kids that live in these areas. There are people that live in this community. There are people that live in this environment. So how do we make sure that these kids don't miss out on the key things that makes them responsible citizens and self-reliant citizens for themselves and for their community and their country? And like I said, we are using Nigeria as a case study. We understand that this goes on in almost all the countries and locations of the world. So it's not just like we are putting out a bad reputation for our country. No, we're just putting it out because we understand that this is replicated in every other countries of the world. And we have to do better as education advocates, as activists for quality education and better world. We need to actually start looking into implementations and inclusive action, collective responsibility to make sure that these people are not left behind. I mean, the SDGs have the special imperative by 2030 to make sure that everyone everywhere have inclusive and quality education, and other SDGs inclusive. So we must make sure that no one is really left behind. I mean, if this kind of initiative, you can see some people coming to the slums to donate some things to these kids, to have school bags. You look at the quality of life that they live. Look at the context of exposures that they have. Look at the kind of life that they're expected to have. Look at the kind of future they're expected to have if someone does not come here to remedy their situation. And this is just a context of what we are talking about when we're talking about low-income communities, right? So I'm moving forward to this. Now, this is also Ajegunle slum, and as you can see, everyone here is just going about having fun, like playing football on the streets, like nothing happens when they're supposed to be in school. I mean, this happens a lot, and just because motivation towards education is poor, but people just feel like, okay, let's play because nobody is coming, nobody cares. We don't see better in our environment. We don't see better in our society. We don't have people that tell us to go to school. We don't have people that tell us to, everybody's just there, just doing what they want to do at the time they want to do it. Yes, so moving on to the next slide. This is another slum, Lagos, Nigeria. It's called Makoko slums. This is interesting because I've been here once, and it's really something very emotional for me. Anytime I see these pictures, I mean, this is some of the places where people live. It's basically, these houses you're looking at are basically built on waters. They find it very hard every day to live, to talk less education, talk less, living above the poverty line. This is just basic survival. I mean, we just want to keep our breaths, we just want to keep breathing. And so some kids live here, some kids totally, live here. And the fact is, teachers don't want to come here. Teachers don't want to have anything to do with this kind of environment. It's the truth and the fact that teaching is a humanitarian job already. But to add this to it is actually, a very tasking job, and it takes ardent passion for you to see people that would actually come here and impact. And this is why this session is very, very important and very, very pivotal if we want to have an inclusive and quality education for an ever progressive world, right? Then, yes, this is basically how they move every day. You know, you see this little girl paddling a canoe. I mean, I don't even know how to paddle a canoe because this is where they live. This is their world. This is their life. They found it, you know, it's difficult to actually live. So it's just basic survival instinct to just want to survive, to just want to, you know, just have something to eat. Education might not just be the top priority on the list. So I just want to go out there, you know, and I can't be doing this, you know, and somebody's still, you know, telling me to go to school. So it's really hard to survive in most of these places, just giving us context. Then here is actually my community. This is where I serve. I might need to add, I'm a Teach for Nigeria fellow, and under the large umbrella of Teach for All. And my placement community, actually, I'm about exhausting my 2-year fellowship span, and I'm having a month left on my contract. And this is what we are, you know, onboarded to do. We're sent to low-income communities like this to, you know, to tend to the needs of quality education in places where these people cannot basically and naturally afford quality education. I mean, these people cannot basically pay us for what we do, but we do it for humanity, right? Like I said, teaching is an humanitarian job. Now, this is my community, and one of the nights, I don't even need to start getting into the details of what my community looks like. But as you can see, you can have a feel of where I live right now because of my contract with Teach for Nigeria and the kind of environment that we have around. And I was going by that night, I was going to the mini mart that we have to get some supplies, food supplies. The only mini mart actually in the whole village. So, and they have, this is the only street in the whole village where they have street lights. So I was going by that day with my supplies in my hands, and I saw these kids with their books trying to do their assignments under the street light. And I was almost crying because I also went through something like this, but even worse. I mean, there's something we call, I could have brought it, a headlamp, but it's a native headlamp with this yellow light, yellow flame, gotten from kerosene that I used to read. I read with lantern too, the kerosene lamp. And so seeing them connected me with their stories, with what they're going through. And, you know, I asked for permission to take this picture from them because they want to do their assignment, because they want to read, they want to study, they want to, you know, change their narrative from just being an ordinary village boy to an educated village boy, to translate this narrative into something more interesting for their life, to make a good citizen, a self-reliant citizen. And this is going on for every other people in low-income communities. We have a lot of hundreds of thousands of kids in this situation. So when we talk about low-income communities, life sometimes is not well understood until we bring out context for us to understand what these kids actually go through, and why educators around the world and, you know, humanitarians, philanthropists, organizations, governments must rise up to make sure that these people are not marginalized for life. And this is the work that we do, right? So it's always very interesting when we connect with these stories. I would have asked us to connect. If you can connect with any of these stories, please go into the chat box and tell us your experience around stuff like this. If this is something that, you know, that tells you these are the things, more actions that we need to include, please go into the chat box. Tell us if you can connect to these stories. Tell us if you've ever been in a situation like this. Tell us if you have ever taken action, you know, to better the lives of these ones that, you know, they are really underprivileged. And that's just what we can say. I mean, engaging in conversations with most of them, they've not even been to the next town next to them. I mean, this is just their world. They don't even know any other world exists. And so sometimes we come to the classrooms and all we have to do is just expose to them that there's another place. There's still a life outside of their local communities. So please, if you can connect to these stories, it will be very helpful. You can go into the chat and share your story and let us, you know, relate and, you know, resonate with you. So going forward, why do these regions suffer from poor education? I mean, why do we have we have this kind of stuff going on for people like this for hundreds and hundreds and thousands of kids all over the world? The first thing that I can think of actually is poor funding, and talking about poor funding, this is just about bad governance. You see, in Nigeria, I don't need to start mentioning numbers, but the priorities of government tells a lot about, when you see them spending. Thank you, Abigail, for sharing how you've given back to the community. I mean, it's so beautiful to see that people resonate with this and people are taking action to make sure that these kids are not marginalized for life. Because the truth is, they're going to be like that for life. They either want to become, most especially where I'm from, kids like this want to, just grow up and be a smuggler. Yes, because I live around. All right. Because I live around the borderlines. They just want to be smugglers. They want to be, they want to do bunkering, carry fuel, smuggle contrabands into the country, do all sorts of vices. They really do not have, this role model. Then we have inadequate education infrastructure. Of course, you can just imagine what's going on in that kind of environment. What infrastructure could you possibly come by? And lack of quality life or basic social amenity, paucity of teachers due to poor economic conditions, inadequate classrooms, and marginalized realities. So what are the possible solutions that we can start to talk about, right? We make a call to empathy. So, and one of the people that I see, one of the big guys that I see around in Nigeria that are doing so very much when it comes to providing quality education and inclusive education for kids everywhere in the country, is Teach for Nigeria. So Teach for Nigeria recruits kids, leaders, I beg your pardon, to go into these low-income communities and to expose them to life-changing realities, to give them quality teachings and an understanding of a quality life, which is one of the reasons why I also joined the movement at the time. And like I said, I've reached thousands of kids in these low-income communities so far. And every time we go out, the story is always emotional. The story is always impacting. The story is always, is always that thank you for showing us that another world where we can be better people exists. And so we need more people to join this call. We need more people to join this advocacy. Like I said in my introduction, I'm also the founder of Village to School Education Initiative. We call it Village to School Nigeria. Basically, what we do is we provide inclusivity in terms of, we have many organizations and non-profit organizations that provide quality education, bring the kids from the streets to the school, right? They make sure that they're in school. But what we do basically is to make sure that these kids are kept in school. We saw a gap between when kids are being brought to school. Fine, you brought them from the slums, from the streets to the school, but we see that as they enter into the school, there is no motivation for them to keep going. So they don't really see a need for them to, put in the grit, put in the resilience, put in the work to stay in school, which is why we founded this Village to School Education Initiative, to motivate, to connect kids with mentors all around the world. We can definitely connect Anusha with some of our kids here in this low-income community to show them that life across border is possible. To show them that you can actually be more. You can actually so that you can offer them motivation, mentorship, and all sorts of things. So we also offer palliatives. We pitch for grants to better provide basic stationaries and what have you to these kids. So yeah, we've also been able to reach a lot of kids. We have a lot of people volunteering from all around the world, from 4 continents and 5 countries, and we hope to even do more in the future. Yes, so going forward, I just running up in a bit. We also, one other major thing that we can do is to include the Sustainable Development Goals. So everybody should actually be SDG savvy. This is one way we can make sure that the reality of these kids are actually transformed. This is a big way to to change the narrative. This is a big way to to include them into the global plans so that they are not left behind. So we talk about SDG 1, which is talking about no poverty. So they understand that some people somewhere are fighting for them to rise above the poverty line and the kind of life they're living currently. And a lot of other things. They understand that people are rooting for them to have a quality education. They understand that people want them to be peaceful and have sustainable partnership and collaboration with people around the world. So the SDGs is actually a big way from changing the narrative of low-income communities when we induct them in a very interesting and engaging way. Thank you very much. I think this is where I'll be stopping. I understand Anusha has the question parts covered. So thank you so very much. I'll stop sharing now.
Isaac, thank you very much. You still had 15 minutes left. Thank you for your amazing session. Thank you for showing the importance of ensuring a context-related approach and mobilizing qualified teachers in low-income communities. And we have love pouring in from all over the world for you and your session. And I will be, yes. So I just have my eyes in one name, Abigail Editolas. He says, during the lockdown, I've joined a group called the Give Back Group to go to communities around Yaba and teach science. It was interesting and heartbreaking at the same time to see a lot of children so eager to learn, but inadequate access. Well done, Mr. Isaac. And then we have people from all over the world. If you can see your chat messages, and do have another question for you. MD Bayezid Khan writes, in most cases, poor economical condition is the premier reason for huge number out of school children in developing countries. Without ensuring sources of regular earning either for the families or the children, we can never send them to schools or for learning. So managing all sorts of support from the industry owners with the preconditions of compulsory work for them after attaining learning, we may proceed for these out of school children work-based learning. He says that, and then we have Nimia Udi sharing, we really have a bad situation here in Nigeria with regards to education, especially in the rural areas. I have a school in the rural areas I visit every week to teach, and those kids can't even read. Most of them are teens. I do a reading class with them to help, whereas children in school in urban areas can read from age 3. And I do have a question for you, Ajak. My question is, by and large, quality education normally associated with the selected and privileged students. How can one propose to provide quality education to common students?
Thank you very much, Anusha, for that information. So at some point, every student or every learner has been in contact with students. So quality education is a concept of a teacher that's willing to do more. So it's not in its actuality or how we think about it, a big thing that is out of line or that we go out of the way to. Sometimes the teacher that cares will go the extra mile to make sure that education is the education that is being provided to the kids is qualitative, right? But majorly, it's more about the intentionality of the educator. So I have 10 or 20 kids that I'm engaging probably weekly. However, you don't want to know how many kids I engage weekly. It's crazy. I engage close to, let's say, more than 300 kids weekly that I teach weekly. So how do I make sure that each and every one of these kids have a quality presentation for me, quality teaching, and so they have a quality experience? So it's first of all making sure that every teacher that enters into the classroom is intentional about impacting. So it's really, of course, in these low-income communities, you probably want to have an interactive board. You probably want to have a projector. You probably want to have, so you are down by what you can do by a lot of percentage. So what really drives you at this point, at this level, is your passion to make sure that these kids are better off. So most times I use my laptop. Most times I use, thank God, where I am is still a little bit, developed. in my school, my placement school. So we still have access to smart TVs. So it's really easy for us to engage. But I'm saying that there are places I've been in schools where basically they don't have anything. The classrooms are even dilapidated and everything is looking like, oh, how do we learn here? Many kids learn under the tree and stuff like that, beside the river and stuff like that. I've seen them. So it's actually about the intentionality of the teacher. That is the major thing I can tell you, really. So it's not about having all the equipment for a quality classroom engagement. It's more about the resourcefulness, the intentionality of the teacher, and the rate at which the teacher himself is willing to impart, and the rate of exposure of the teacher.
Thank you so much, Isaac. Online, as you mentioned, online forum with self-learning materials can be one of the most cost-effective ways of interacting with students with low-income resources. Do you agree?
Yes. Are you asking about if online materials are helpful in these low-income communities?
Yes. Do you agree?
Yes. Well, in Video to School Nigeria right now, we are developing a leadership curriculum, majorly from everybody all around the place. I have people working on this curriculum from the United States, from Australia, from South Africa, from Malaysia, and Nigeria, as the case may be. And what we are doing is we're trying to make it, something that every kid in Nigeria can have access to. Every kid in Nigeria can, relate with when it comes to leadership, so they can, know that something is expected of them apart from being a student. They are supposed to be a leader, changing the systems, the modeling of our systems from the inside out. So we understand that schools, and that's why I resonated with the previous speaker talking about design thinking. Very, very essential, very, very important to start teaching our kids. However, you can imagine a kid that can't even use a computer, a kid that doesn't even have a computer, a kid that doesn't even have a phone, let alone, I'm lucky to be having a very, very vibrant network now. Sometimes we don't, which means right now, if I happen to be in a bad place that I don't have network, I might not be able to connect with you. So sometimes these things are a big challenge for including. So sometimes you start from scratch. Like you start teaching kids how to use a computer, how to use Microsoft Word to type, how to use Microsoft Excel, how to use conferencing apps, how to connect with people from all around the place. So it's really like a big work from the scratch. And this is why people that are going into this stuff of advocacy must really be passionate about it. So the intentionality must really, really be there for you to be able to make impacts. So yes, these things works. If you are ready to do the work, it will ease a lot of pressure, it will make a lot of impact, it will make a lot of land and giant strides, no doubt. But you must be ready to do the work, because obviously there are going to be urges along the line when you're trying to integrate these things. But you have to be tenacious in seeing the change that you want to see.
Thank you so much, Angela. That was really, really, really well informed of you. We have Abdikar Ismail from Kenya saying, thanks, Isaac. In life, you start with Maslow before Bloom's. It is important to engage in entrepreneurship mindset in LIC for learners to connect learning with life. And we have people from all over the world congratulating you. You saying every great presentation, Isaac. Eileen writes great presentation, Isaac. And we have many people. So if you have any queries, ladies and gentlemen, please register yourself in the chat box. And it says, Nikki Sawyer writes, yes, it's the intention of the teacher, flexibility, adaptability, empathy, preparation, consideration. Thank you, Nikki. Thank you so much. And if you do not have any questions, I do have another question for you, Isaac. My question is, do you think open and online learning could be one of the options to address this issue by those lagging behind the mainstream?
Yes. Actually, I've been an activist of taking learning outside the four walls of the classroom. I think that is where the future lies. I think that is where every one of us should be working towards. I think that is the future of learning and teaching. And I think any teacher that is not ready to key into these plans might actually be, found redundant in the future plans of quality education, if you really want to be in this sphere, you must be able to, we must, all hands must be on deck to take learning full blown through or via technology. So I'm a big fan of what you just said. I don't need to, to beat around the bush. I think that's where we should be. I think that's where everyone should be, irrespective of where you are, irrespective of what difficulty you might be, be facing while you're incorporating these ideas. And I think if there's any difficulty that we are facing, those difficulties should be solved as soon as possible. If there are no networks in low-income communities, networks should be fixed. If there are no good roads to, to make sure that people that can expose us to this, world context of education, the roads should be fixed. I'm a big fan of, if the kids need to learn from another teacher, if I need to teach another my kids something, and I need another person from across the continent to come teach it, they should be able to do that. Learning should be, how do I say it now? Cross-sectional. It should be all-encompassing. So yeah, you have a big yes for me. This is where learning should be. This is where learning is going. And yes, I think we're getting there in Nigeria with a lot of people dropping the archaic mentality of just the classroom and just the board and the students and the marker. We are really going, into the tech world, and it's really, really fun and exciting to see.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Isaac. Didi Bill from the United States of America writes, yes, digital learning skills, the basic first must be taught. I had to do this with my English language learners with the language barrier. It was challenging, but we were successful with it. It takes a lot of dedication and work. And we have messages from all around the world for you, Isaac. If you have a message for Isaac, please unmute yourself and you may share your thoughts. We have around 15 minutes left for another session to begin. So if you have any question for Isaac, please unmute yourself.
Actually, if you don't mind, Anusha, it's actually a session where, to incorporate empathy. I think that's why I said at the start that it's an engaging session.
Yeah.
So I believe everyone here is an educator, and everyone here must have something to say, which is why I kind of linked it up with the understanding of what low-income communities have. And if you've ever probably come from one, or you've experienced living in one, or you have been in one, or you've seen one, which makes it very, very relatable. And so everyone should be, just, say a little one or two things that you've seen. What do you think we can do going forward? This is a global conference where people's opinions should be heard, where we should hear your context. I've put out my own context, and I've been able to share a little bit of context. So this is a free space where we can share about what can we do better, what are your experiences, even if it's just your passion about these works, what you have sacrificed. For me, I've sacrificed so much. I've sacrificed getting another degree to living here for 2 years. That is huge for me. And for the kind of person that I am, I'm very big on learning. And I've not been able to progress my career in education just because of this passion to provide this access. So yeah, everybody has stories to tell, and this is exactly what I intended that we should be able to do on this very session. Thank you, Anusha.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, if you would like to connect with Isaac, you can visit Education Influence